In this video, we're going to talk about absolute value equations. Now, just for a moment, I want to very quickly review what an absolute value is. And you might kind of remember it has something to do with being positive. So an absolute value measures the distance a number is from zero. Now, that's talking about on the number line. So when we're talking about some distance away from zero, so let's say here's zero and here's a number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So the distance 5 is from zero is 5. So the absolute value of 5 is 5 because that's its distance from zero. But that would also work if we were talking about -5 going the other way. -5 also has a distance of 0, so the absolute value of -5 is 5. So most people kind of equate the absolute value to making the number positive. And that's a good way of thinking about it, but it's making it positive. So we're talking about distance. Okay, so coming back then to this equation here, the absolute value of x equals 6. What we're asking ourselves is, what would we take the absolute value of that's going to give us 6? And after our discussion over here, I hope the answer is kind of obvious. Either 6 or -6 is going to give us an absolute value of 6. So once we isolate the absolute value, we can jump right to the answer because we kind of know that those are the only numbers that are going to work. So now that I kind of said that, let's look at this next example. And I gave us a bit of a clue. We're going to start by isolating the absolute value. And then we'll jump to the positive and negative. All right, so let's do that. Let's -7 from both sides. And let's see, that'll give us 12. I'm going to divide by 3. Now I have the absolute value of x equals 4, and the two numbers must be +4 and -4. Those would be the only numbers that when I plug in the absolute value, they're going to give me 4. All right, so let's look at this equation, a little different now, because now we don't just have an x inside the absolute value. We have like a little mini expression. I do notice, though, that the absolute value is already by itself on one side. So I've isolated, the absolute value is isolated. So I'm going to kind of use what I have written above, and I'm going to kind of do the same thing for what I have here. I'm going to say then that 2x minus 1 could equal +7, or 2x minus 1 could equal -7. Both of those inside the absolute value is going to give me a 7. And then I could solve for x to figure out what x has to be to make that happen. All right, so that's going to be 8 divided by 2. So 4 is going to work if I plug 4 in for x. And I can see that if I look up at the equation, if I plug 4 in for x, that's going to give me a 7. And the absolute value of 7 is 7. Let's solve this one. Let's see, that'll be -6 divided by 2. So this one is -3. And if I plug -3 back up into that equation, that's going to give me a -7. And the absolute value of -7 is 7. So there you go. That's how this works. So we're going to kind of use this to approach the rest of the problems here. All right, so this one's kind of like that one earlier where we need to isolate the variable. Sorry, let me go ahead and get rid of that. I'm just going to do this, of course. All right, there we go. Better. All right, so let's start by subtracting 2. Let's see, that's going to be -4 times the absolute value of 2x plus 3 equals, okay, so that's -20. Wow, that's really crooked. That's fine. Let's divide both sides by -4. So let's see, absolute value of 2x plus 3 equals 5. Okay, so now we're going to do what we did above. I'm going to take 2x plus 3. I'm going to set it equal to +5. And 2x plus 3 could be -5. And those will both work. All right, let's solve. So let's see, that's 2x equals 2. So on this one, I'm getting x equals 1. Over here, that's going to give me 2x equals -8. And this one is -4. And there we go. All right, let's try it again. Again, we want to isolate the absolute value. So I'm going to -7 from both sides. And that's going to give me -3. Now, actually, that's impossible. The absolute value can't equal a negative number. It has to equal a positive. All right, so the absolute value can't equal a negative. So at this point, I stop, and my answer is no solution. Can't happen. All right. Let's go ahead and look at this one. 2 absolute values. Okay, so it looks a little intimidating, but I'm going to kind of approach it the exact same way as I did earlier. I'm going to take 2x minus 7, and I'm going to set it equal to 4x plus 6. That's the positive version. And then I'm going to take 2x minus 7, and I'm going to set it equal to negative 4x minus 6. That's the negative version. So I'm still doing a positive negative case. Oops, wow, grabbed the wrong pencil. Positive, there we go. And this is the negative case, okay? But what I'm doing is I'm taking the positive, which is the exact expression it is without the absolute value, and then the negative is literally changing its signs. So real quick comment, because I want us to understand, if this had happened to be the absolute value of 4x minus 6, then I would have had 2x minus 7 equals 4x minus 6, and then 2x minus 7 equals negative 4x plus 6. So one is the exact sign it is without the absolute value, and the other is taking the negative of both, okay? So I want us to understand that subtle distinction. Just because it happened to make both numbers negative, that has nothing to do with it, all right? It's that I'm literally changing the signs for this one, okay? So we're changing the signs. That's the quote unquote negative of that. So what we're really doing is throwing a negative out in front and distributing the negative in. Okay, I hope that is clear. So now we can solve these two equations. So I'm going to start by minusing 4x. That'll be negative 2x minus 7 equals 6. I'm going to add that 7. All right, so negative 2x equals 13, divide by negative 2. So x is negative 13 halves. I'll just leave it as a fraction. Over here, I'm going to add 4x to both sides. Oops. And that'll give me 6x minus 7 equals negative 6. Add this 7. So that's 6x equals 1. Divide by 6. Okay, so 1/6. And there's my two answers. And I don't care if they're fractions, that's fine. Fractions don't worry me. But that's how you'd approach it then if there's two absolute values like that. Just take one and then negate the other one. So take it exactly as is without the absolute values, and then change the signs on the right-hand side only.